Saving more money doesn't always fix it, but it does feel like progress. Hi, Jason Bowers here, financial planner, Convergent Financial Partners, and welcome to my channel. So sometimes saving more money feels like progress, but it's not necessarily fixing the issue. If you're in your 50s, you're earning well, and even though you're continuing to contribute and save for the future, you still feel behind, you got to listen up, because saving more doesn't always fix the issue. It can be synonymous with pouring more water into a leaky bucket. It's going to help, but it's not fixing the underlying issue. So I'm going to talk about a few ways that you can identify if this is your situation. And if it is your situation, it's not anything to hang your head about. It's about making sure that we come up with a plan to address it as soon as possible in order to achieve true progress and not the illusion of progress. We want to fix that leaky bucket long before you start pouring more money into it. There's an order of operations mistake that people focus on, and they miss the boat of what should be done when it comes to addressing any needs that your situation has as they continue to plan for the future. And that's where financial planning really shines, is identifying those issues, coming up with a strategy to fix that leaky bucket. And now that our situation is efficient, then we can start dumping money into the appropriate accounts. So if you don't fix the underlying issue within your structure, then your structure will continue, your financial plan will continue to operate inefficiently. And if you do that, then pouring more water into it, it's going to mask it. It's not going to fix it. So what I'd like to do is dive in here briefly into those 5 ways that it could show up in your situation. So number 1, savings before fixing cash flow inefficiencies. You're maxing out your contributions, but you're carrying debt at moderate rates. I'm not talking about good debt like mortgage or maybe a home equity line of credit. We're talking about unnecessary auto loans, unnecessarily short-term loans at a high interest rate, unnecessary credit card debt. You're overspending in areas that don't align with your priorities. If I sit down with you and say, what are your goals? And you say, Jason, my goals are A, B, and C, but then I see you spending money on X, Y, and Z, then we have to make sure that our goals align with our spending. Because if you're spending in areas that don't align with your goals, then we're flushing money down the toilet. And then what it also means is you're not clearly defining what retirement actually requires. What it, educating yourself or working with a professional that can educate you on, here's what retirement's going to look like. No more income. We need to rely on our nest egg. Here's what Social Security looks like, maybe a pension, taxes, healthcare, all that stuff. Once you understand what retirement's going to look like, then you can better plan. More savings doesn't fix a misaligned cash flow or a misaligned budget. It simply just masks it. And that's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to pour a bunch of water into a bucket that's leaking, because all you're doing is masking the fact that the bucket has a leak in it. So number 2, saving without a clear retirement target. So what does that mean? It means you're contributing a lot, but you have some of these things. There's no defined retirement date. When would you like to retire? What age? If your goal for retirement is as soon as possible, you can't plan for that. That's like hopping in your car wanting to go on vacation. Where you're headed to? We're going to a beautiful place. Okay, where is that? You have to define when you're going to retire to define if you're on pace. Also, just because you define retirement, that's not the end game. That's the first decision. The next one is, what is your income goal in retirement? What does retirement look like for you? How much income do you want? You have to answer that question. And a lot of times people, they can't come up with that answer because they don't know. They know how much they need now, but they don't know how much they need a decade from now. That's my job. That's a financial planner's job, is to share that number with you. So that way you're like, wow, now I know what I'm saving for. And also there's no clarity for this person, because they don't have a defined date, they don't have defined income, and therefore they don't know how much is enough. Do I have enough money to retire? Well, how much is enough if you don't know how much you need? So what this does is this creates that constant feeling of being behind, even if you're not. And I tell you what, there's nobody that wants to feel that. So number 3 is saving into the wrong buckets. And you don't have any tax efficiency this way. You're doing the right thing, you're saving. You might even be saving the right amount, but just in the wrong places. And that will only become apparent either by doing a financial plan or by getting to retirement and realizing when it's too late. So what that looks like is you're overloaded in your savings in your tax deferred accounts. What does that mean? Jason, I have $500,000 saved for retirement. That's great. That's a good amount of money. How much is in your 401k? 478,000 of it. Ouch. That's heavily weighted in your tax deferred accounts. Also, if you have very little to no tax diversification, meaning what type of accounts are you saving into? Or do you have any Roth money? Do you have any non-retirement assets in non-retirement accounts like brokerage accounts or CDs? If there's no forward-looking tax strategy, if your tax strategy goes 12 months at a time, how do I mitigate taxes this year? Well, you're gonna have to pay the piper at some point. So if you do everything you can to avoid taxes now, you're not gonna be able to avoid them in the future because you've not given yourself that flexibility. What you wanna look at is lifetime tax. What can we do today to mitigate taxes today and mitigate taxes in the future? The result of not addressing this is large balances in your savings accounts, but less usable income later. Because $500,000 in saved retirement assets sounds like a lot until 25% of it goes to the tax man and you're left with less than you think. All right, so number 4, ignoring risk and appropriate asset allocation. So what does that mean? You keep contributing and saving, but your portfolio risk doesn't match your timeline. Meaning, the closer you get to the goal, the more conservative you should be becoming. You're also either too conservative, which means you can't keep up no matter how much you save, or you're too aggressive, and again, that exposes you to sequence of returns risk. So how does it feel when this is the situation for you? It ends up being your returns, not your contributions, that do all the heavy lifting late in the game. And the last thing that you want when you're in that retirement danger zone, the 5 years before retirement and the 5 years in retirement, first 5 years in retirement, is to be relying on the markets. Now, over a long period of time, they're going to do well, but late in retirement, you want your contributions to be doing the heavy lifting so you can then dial back your risk a little bit to make your plan that much more efficient, not optimizing what you already have. So before you start saving more, instead, you have not done, some things that you haven't done before you start saving more is consolidated accounts. Do you have too many accounts at too many different places? Being diversified in your institution or diversified with your investment firm is not necessarily diversification because they all could be invested in the exact same thing. Also, you want to review fees. Are there certain strategies that are available to you now that will cost you less, therefore earning you more from a net rate of return standpoint? Also, what about improved investment selection? There's many more things we can buy into today that simply weren't available yesterday. So making sure that you have a properly diversified portfolio, but also taking advantage of new things in the marketplace could be in your best interest long before saving more. And also, these people haven't really evaluated what other income strategies they're going to have in retirement. It's all about their savings, their savings, their savings. Well, you might have a Social Security benefit. If you're married, you might have 2. You might have a pension. You might have 2. So you might have 4 different sources of income long before you have to touch your nest egg. And you have to take those things into consideration because if you don't, then you can often create less efficient saving strategies. So you want to make sure that you optimize what you have available to you long before you start dumping more money into a system that's not optimized to receive those additional savings. More times than not, you can create great movement in your financial plan, not by saving more, but by first optimizing what you have first. So as we wrap things up, it's not always about what you shouldn't be doing. Jason, okay, great. I understand some of the things that I shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't be throwing more money in a leaky bucket. I should be optimizing my situation, tax diversity, all that stuff. Tell me what I should be doing. So this is what the real order of operations should look like. 1, you want to create some clarity. Put a financial plan together to build that clarity for you. You want to understand your timeline, your income goal, and what you want your lifestyle to be like once you finally reach that goal of retirement. 2, efficiency. You're talking about tax efficiency, fees, and your overall account structure within your portfolio of accounts. 3, risk alignment. Does your timeline match the risk environment that you're in at that moment? The closer you get to that goal, the more conservative you should become, not the more aggressive, in order to make up for lost time. Number 4, cash flow optimization. Are you optimizing your cash flow, or are you wasting money on things that don't align with your goals? If you're spending too much money eating out, is that a part of your goals? Because if it's not, then we need to dial it back a little bit. You don't need to eliminate it, we just need to dial it back. And then finally, once those 4 things have been done, then you can increase your savings. The core insight here is the mistake is treating savings as the solution instead of actually as a tool. Because without the right structure, more savings simply just creates the illusion of progress, but not the outcomes that people want. A financial plan will deliver the clarity that you need to help guide you through this process. So if you have any questions, hit me up via email. Let's schedule a time to chat, and I can help guide you down the path and build that financial plan for you. I'd love to talk to you, interact with you, and help you plan for the future. Hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to share it with anybody that also might enjoy it. Hit subscribe so that way you can see more content like this. And I appreciate everybody that subscribes. The support has been tremendous. And look forward to chatting with you guys soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.